Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder of Streamlined Properties and the team leader of Streamlined Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. Whether you are looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
We are back, and this week you're going to hear from Elenis Camargo, who is part of Thirdstone Properties in Jacksonville, Florida, and she's going to explain to you how her and her husband Isaac use property management to fund their real estate investments. Before we get to the show, I'm always going to remind you, if you could just do us a favor, if you like the show, subscribe, follow, do all that good stuff, share it with your friends if you really think that it adds value in the real estate investing podcast space. And if you haven't heard it and this is your first one, get ready for Elenis. This is episode 32 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Elenis Camargo. Elenis is the co-founder with her husband Isaac of Thirdstone Properties, which is a Northeast Florida company helping you to deal source and a ton of property management in the area. They have 12 current units of their own and 329 doors under management. Elenis, welcome to the show. It's great to finally meet you.
Thank you so much. You too, Jonathan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. I've been following you on Instagram for a while, and now it's going to be great to get a little bit of real information. Tell us how you guys got started in real estate.
Of course. My husband and I moved to New York City from Miami back in 2016, and we had planned on buying an apartment there and staying there long term. Pretty quickly, we realized how much money you really needed to buy an apartment in New York and what kind of apartment we would get, something very small that we couldn't grow into. So one day we were walking our dog and we thought of our landlord in Gainesville when we went to school there. He was an out-of-state landlord that was managing from Texas, and he would hire a local company to place his tenants. So we thought maybe we could do that. We settled on Jacksonville because we wanted something in Florida. Miami was too expensive, and my sister grew up in Jacksonville, so we had some familiarity with the area. So we started doing a lot of research, saving money, and we bought 3 properties in our first year in Jacksonville. And then quickly, we were self-managing, so we liked that managing aspect and quickly wanted to figure out what we could do to do real estate full time. And then we came to that goal of starting the property management company. I became licensed, and then we planned to move to Jacksonville in 2020. So we ended up moving in the middle of the COVID shutdown in May of 2020 and starting the business there.
Yeah, I mean, there have been so many good stories, I think, especially with investing, because it gave people the opportunity to really think what they were passionate about. But before you even decided on this, were you guys talking about real estate in terms of like more than just like buying your own place, which was where you were going to start in New York?
No, never. No, we never considered real estate investing. We thought it was neat when our landlord was doing it. We're like, oh, that's pretty easy. We were easy people. We never submitted any complaints. So we're like, oh, that's pretty easy. Just have somebody place your tenant and you collect the rent. And that's pretty much it. I did more reading on the property management side, and we would just listen to podcasts and read and look at deals all the time. And then we're like, okay, let's jump in and get something. But we never imagined that this would be the business that we would start. We always wanted to start a business and had that mindset, but I never imagined that it would be real estate or property management.
Yeah. And I mean, you must have gotten off to a good start, but you said something important. You chose Jacksonville because one, your sister had grown up there and you had ties to Florida. And I think that just hedges your bets for a little bit easier. You knew the area, you knew probably people in the area. So it was a little bit safer than just like throwing a dart at Dayton, Ohio and hoping for the best.
Yes. At the time, one of my sister's best friends was an agent. So she's the one that helped us with our first 3 deals. And we chose Florida because it was also a landlord-friendly state. So we wanted something that would be easier for us rather than buying somewhere like New York or one of those states that's tenant-friendly.
Yeah, and Before you guys bought the three properties, had you already found Bigger Pockets? Because I know that was a huge influence for you. Had you found it before that, or was it like all happening at the same time?
So I think one of my husband's coworkers told him about it, and that's when we spent that like the first year from like 2017 to 2018 reading blogs and listening to Bigger Pockets and saving money. Yeah, that we hadn't found it before that 2017. So it was around the same time of talking, his coworker told him about it, and then we're like, hey, our out-of-state landlord back in Gainesville did this, and it seemed pretty easy. So like that just happened all at once. And we had already started saving money to buy a place in New York. And then instead we're like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, you could get more places in Florida for the same price. And that's probably what you guys ended up doing.
Yes.
What were those first three assets? Were they single families, condos?
Yes, all of them we own are single families, except the last one is a duplex. But yes, the first one was 90,000. The second one was 49,000. And then the last one was 123,000. And that one we got with a HELOC from the first one. So it all happened quickly, and all of those have increased substantially. Obviously, a lot of the real estate did, but yeah, it was just really good timing at that time.
Did any of that, did the 49,000 one, did that require more upgrades than the others?
Not really. Honestly, the 123,000 one is, the tenants are still in place right now. It just requires a full rehab. They had been there back then for 12 years. So now it's been, 16 years or so. The 49,000 was just in a zip of low income area. A lot of people weren't buying, they were investing there. A few years later, that zip code has changed substantially. But yeah, it didn't really need it wasn't like a gut job or anything like that. We did minor work to it to get a tenant in place. And actually those three first deals came with tenants in place already. So my first three came with inherited tenants. That was another
how did
experience.
Yeah, I guess out of the three, and now obviously you have so much management experience, like right now, would you prefer to buy with tenants in place or not in place? I know there's a lot of variables for it, but I was actually just talking about this last night, and it's an interesting thing to throw back and forth.
I always tell people when they ask me that I wouldn't not buy a place because of a tenant. So we ended up actually evicting, or the first tenant didn't get evicted, but she abandoned the property without us having any idea after just a few months. But yeah, I wouldn't not buy it because of somebody already living there, or I wouldn't specifically look for a tenant, like an inherited tenant property. And yeah, in Florida, you could end the lease if they're causing trouble, or wait till the lease ends, or if they're not paying, you can file the paperwork. But yeah, everyone has their preference. But we, especially in 2021, the majority of the properties we took over were with inherited tenants. So it seems scary to somebody out of state and that's getting into it. But because we've dealt with it so much, it's comfortable to us now. But as a new investor, it felt a little easier because we didn't have to place a tenant off the bat. We just had one there and we could instantly start cash flowing. So it worked out for us for those first few months until she left.
I think there's pros and cons for them both. I think I was just saying to somebody last night that it's a nice hedge for a new investor, as long as the tenant's okay, even if they're paying under market rent, because then you don't have to do any renovations. Because you were saying they've been there for 12 years, so you get a very solid tenant, and you really don't have to do like major capex because they're going to leave when they leave. So if they leave, 4 years later, you save the money on that. And sure, are you getting a little bit less cash flow? Yeah, but you don't. There's no capex. Which other properties vacant, maybe you need to do the capex, and then you'll get better rent. But it's more outlay of cash at the time. Exactly.
Yeah, on that one, they're severely under market, probably about $800 in that area. But
that's a lot.
We'd have to spend about like $40,000 in rehabbing it. That it's we're kind of breaking even on that one. Just pay off the mortgage for a little bit until they move out, or until we come up with the funds to do that, or decide to do it and have the time. We have a lot of the client stuff, the client properties that we prioritize over our own. We have to pick and choose what to do.
Yeah. So the property management and getting your license was all part of the idea to let's make more money to get more real estate.
So by the time I got my license, we had already decided we wanted to do real estate full time and moved to Jackson. After my sister's friend that helped us with those 3 deals, she switched jobs, and then we found another agent, which is a partner of ours now. So I became an agent. I would refer people to him. So I would network a lot, and people would ask me, I would blog a lot too. People would ask me what agent was I using and how did I find my deals. So I would help them find deals, and then I would refer them over to Michael. So we did that for a while. And then when we moved here, we still did that, and we would manage them because we had the brokerage. But after a while, it just made sense for Michael to come on board and service all of our clients under one roof. And he would continue helping them find deals. And then we would continue the property management side instead of them going to him and then ping-ponging back to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess explain how you have so many units in property management. And to me, property management is very difficult. It's really like a subset of people who can deal with it. And it's usually because you develop good systems and you're very good with clients. How did you guys know that you were going to be good at it? Because it can go haywire real fast, especially when you have as many doors to manage as you do.
Yes, definitely. I think it's a difficult business for sure because you're dealing with a lot of people and a lot of different personalities and vendors. And it's a lot, definitely. But it's also a simple business in the fact that the main thing you have to do is answer the phone and answer your emails and messages. So that's a big complaint that we heard from a lot of people of why they didn't like their property manager. Like they wouldn't answer the phone. They wouldn't answer their emails. Like they didn't know what was going on with their properties. And that's primarily why we wanted to self-manage. We had an interest in it, and we didn't have kids or like a big workload at the time. So we thought this is something we wanted to do on the side. But we both in our careers, like the biggest thing we were taught was to have really great customer service. And no matter what you're doing, take care of people in any business. So that was just like, that's what we were going to do. And as we grew the business, we wanted to make sure we could continually improve our systems and our processes. And once we hired people, we were very big on writing all those systems and processes down and training them the right way versus like stories we've heard, even from our partner, Michael, where places you've worked at in the past, they would just throw people in there into this role and not train them. So of course, if you bring somebody on, you throw them in there, they're not going to treat your tenants and your clients how you've been treating them because they have no idea what's going on. Customer service was at the forefront, and making sure that as we grew and took on more properties, that we can handle that workload and have that same level of experience for the tenants and for the customers. We knew any business we got into, we would put customer service as number one, and that's how we would be successful in it.
I wonder if you agree with this. So for property management, the way that I see it is a lot of people fail because they don't set up the tenants correctly, meaning you get more calls because you don't tell them what to call about or who to call when. Have you guys set up structures like that where as at now where, you're kind of them to what to do, because then it will reduce the load that comes to you in terms of phone calls. If they don't know, they'll literally call about everything and the phone never stops ringing. And that's why people hate it.
For sure. Yes. If they call in with a maintenance issue, we do have people that, first we have a system where they log in, they pay their rent, and they log in and they can open maintenance issues and tickets and send pictures. There are a handful that don't have email, don't know how to work the computer, so they can't do that. So those people come in, but for the most part, 95% of them can do it through the system. So if they call in and we know that they have access, we just, we'll handle it, but please open a ticket on the system and we'll take care of it. Yes, it definitely is like pointing them back and sticking to our processes have made things more workable.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. And the only way you can get to the amount of management units that you have is by having good systems, or else it will just drive everybody crarazy. So it was 329 units under management. How many different complexes are those in, if we're estimate, because it's probably spread out?
Those are all single family to quads. So
wow. Okay. So you're not managing condos at all.
No, the only apartment building we manage is actually one in Miami. It's the only building we manage, or the only thing we manage in Miami right now. And it's an 11 unit building. Everything else is in Northeast Florida, and everything else is single family, duplex, triplex, or quad.
That's really interesting. Are they all long-term rentals, or do some of them do hybrid Airbnb or short-term, mid-term models in there?
They're all long-term. We're not really set up for short-term rentals. I had a lot of clients asking me that about a year and a half ago when a lot of people were getting into short-term rentals, but it's a very different business. We went on vacation to an Airbnb at that time when everyone was asking me. I just looked around and I'm like, this is a different business.
Yeah. But that's smart to know that, though, and not just like, hey, let's try a couple Airbnbs, because exactly what you said, the management style is completely different. And there's so much daily uptake with Airbnb because they're only there for a short time. So you need to get everything like perfect all the time. Whereas your long-term renters are in control of their own environment all the time. It's really just more maintenance.
And at that time, it was just me, my husband, Isaac, and Michael on the team. So we would have spread ourselves very thin if we would have taken on a different business just to try it. So we didn't want our main business to suffer because of being spread too thin.
Yeah. Something, I mean, for the listeners to note, though, having 329 units, or say you discount the 11 that are one big building and it's just 300 plus units, I think it's much harder to have the amount of units that you have when you're not working a complex. There's a lot of people who manage 200 units, but it's in one complex. So they all have similar common areas. You have the same, providers. By doing this all as singles, multis up to quads, like that's much more difficult because you have to create a separate operating procedure for each house.
And if you're managing an apartment complex of that size, Michael's done that before in his past. You have staff on hand, you have people at the building. He's told me apartment management is very difficult because people tend to come into the office all the time. But yeah, it's very different because you have the staff there versus here we hire vendors to go out and every house is spread all over the place. But a majority of the stuff we manage is on the west side of Jacksonville. So it's pretty close when we have to visit. Then the furthest one we manage, I think, is like an hour's drive from here.
Yeah. What's the just estimate breakdown on how many of those units are absentee owners who don't live in Florida? Because there's snowbirds who use their properties sometimes, but are you getting local investors also who just people like to cluster in their own area? What's the breakdown between those of absentee versus local?
We have, out of all the units that we manage, I would say about 100 owners that we manage for, because a lot of them have multiple properties.
Yeah.
And I would say maybe 5 or 6 are in Jacksonville. The rest of them are spread. Yeah, the rest of them are spread throughout Florida. So there's a lot in Miami, a lot in California, a good amount in New York City, and then spread across the country. And our furthest client is in Singapore. So we have maybe 10 out of country clients. And only a handful in Jacksonville.
Yeah. So since you got to Jacksonville, what's been like the big change in the market? Obviously, the prices definitely helped from your first purchase. It's been a steady incline there. I lived in Florida for 14 years in Fort Lauderdale and Sarasota, but I'm definitely familiar with all the areas in Florida real estate. How's the ride been for you? Are you guys really now happy that you moved to Jacksonville when you did?
Oh, definitely. First of all, we moved out of New York City was extremely shut down, and we had a 10-month-old daughter in a one-bedroom apartment. So it was tough, a tough few months there. But we moved and really quickly, just like very focused on the business. We had the space in the house. We did a home office. I was still working full time while we started the business, and then Isaac was taking the lead on the business. And then I would help him nights and weekends. But it was like full steam ahead, working all the time as much as we could and going out on weekends to houses. So it was a lot of work, a lot of working nonstop during that first year to get where we are now. But it was just very lucky that timing that we moved in. And at that time, a lot of people were reaching out to invest in Jacksonville. Like you said, a lot of people had this time to read and do other things and find things that they were interested in. It was like a machine. People reaching out to me. I would send them to Michael. He would help them find deals. We would start managing them. It was just moved really quickly during that time, and through like maybe July of September of last year when it started slowing down a bit. But definitely prices have increased tremendously. Rents had increased tremendously. And a lot of people moved here from out of state too. Yeah. So we would live house for rent, and we had so many people like moving from Hawaii, Alaska, Michigan, like all over the place to Jacksonville. And it was pretty incredible to see. I mean, being from Miami, you never think of coming to Jacksonville because you think of Orlando, you think of Tampa, you stay in Miami. Yeah. But Jacksonville has such a great location. It's on the beach. It's right on the border of Georgia. Yeah. It's got the right location. It just needed that attention. And I think the city's been trying to take advantage of that too. And it still has a good way to go in terms of bringing entertainment and more things to Jacksonville. That's the part that needs to happen next. But I think the city's trying to do that and working on it too.
Yeah. Wow. Excellent. Today's episode is brought to you by Streamline Properties On Market, brokered by eXp Realty. That is actually my on-market real estate team. We have close to 50 real estate agents in 4 states, primarily in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. We work with traditional buyers and sellers and all investors, no matter what you're looking to do in real estate investing. We have you covered. You can get all the information you need at our website, which is www.streamlined.properties. I wanted to drop back on something we started to talk about before, but when you guys were starting your journey, Bigger Pockets was a big push. And I know for my listeners, and obviously listeners of Bigger Pockets, which is a lot of crossover, they feel the same. What was it about Bigger Pockets that helped you get motivated? The forums you do have to wade through to figure out what's real. But like a lot of us, me included, I have hundreds and hundreds of friends like in real life from Bigger Pockets. How did that work for you? And how did it keep you going still now?
Yeah, so we had to take the subway to work a lot. So we would download the podcasts and we would listen to them on the way to work, or when we were working on something, we would listen to it. So it was just easy. I had never really listened to podcasts before then. My husband had, but it was just easy to learn through other people's experiences, which we tried to do too. When we would write blogs on Bigger Pockets or forum posts, we would try to like just be real with what our experience was. Yeah. So that helped people connect with us too, and just putting out real numbers versus trying to make it seem like we had a great deal. Like our first tenant left in a few months and our second inherited tenant was evicted. So those things happen sometimes when you're first starting to invest, and it didn't scare us away. But yeah, definitely that connection, it helped us connect with a lot of people, and just the easiness of listening to the next episode and learning from other people's experiences and learning what we wanted to do versus what we didn't want to do. So I knew that we didn't want to be an agent. I am an agent and a broker, but I didn't want to do the actual work of the sales side of things. Michael loves doing sales. I didn't like that part. So it was learning what part of real estate we like to do through what other people are doing.
That's really important though. And I think the way that you have it set up now is perfect. If you have Michael doing intake to find the properties, and then it's really like an all-in-one. So investors can know they can come to Thirdstone and like they're going to find a property, and then property management's good. You have all the providers, so they can really plug and play without having to worry about it, which takes the worry off of out-of-state investing as a whole. And it helps because that's how you guys started out of state. You have the background to really help people do it, especially New York. You could just tell them like, this is exactly what we did.
Exactly. That was the conversation a lot through the first and second year. People would say, I'm in California or I'm in New York and I've never been to Jacksonville or Florida. And I said, yeah, I had been to Jacksonville maybe 2 times. Jacksonville's huge. It's the second biggest city land-wise, or the first biggest city land-wise in the 48 states. It's a very big area. So yeah, it is scary when you first start. And if you're not in this world, people think you're crazy if you're investing sight unseen. But once you start associating with people that do this, and it just feels very normal. But yeah, that helped a lot of our clients connect with us and trust us. And a lot of those first clients became really close friends as well.
Yeah. And probably repeat clients. Like you said, you have that many units, but only 100 investors, because it's when you have someone like you guys to go to, it's much easier to buy more units because you've done the system once. So it makes it easy. Okay, we've got it covered. Let's do it again. And I think I think overall, I probably agree. Property management in some areas has a bad name because of the service, but because you guys are focused on the service, you're going to get repeat business over and over. Whereas those other companies are just focused on nothing like that.
That's definitely what gives the industry a bad name, I think. Even for people looking for a rental, or people that are renting from a company and they don't answer the phone and they have a roof leak or something. We've taken over a lot of those as well, where a client has switched over from another company and we call a tenant to onboard them and they say, my roof's been leaking for 5 months in the summer and my AC is not working and it's 100 outside, and we fix it within the week. So
yeah. But that changes the whole tenant dynamic too, because for so long the tenant had been adverse to the landlord. And then just by switching to you guys at Thirdstone, you're able to now bridge that relationship, help them get it fixed and take the onus off. Maybe the landlord was being lazy, like, sure, but maybe it was the property, maybe it was the other company wasn't doing what they were supposed to. And then that can be repaired, because landlord-tenant relationship is the thing that, again, will drive more calls to you. So the happier the tenants are, the less calls you get, which means your investors are just going to get paid and not really have any hassles.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Really good system. Talking about long distance investing as one of the books that had the biggest impact on you, you mentioned Long Distance Real Estate Investing by our friend David Green from the Bigger Pockets podcast. I love that book too. And I've been a long distance investor times throughout my whole life. But I really felt like that book made it so easy for anyone to figure out what to do, and hopefully for some people, what not to do. Did you read that before or during when you guys were getting the 3 properties in Jacksonville, or after?
Yeah, it's funny. We bought that first property and all of our friends and family said, "What are you doing? You're crazy. How are you buying a house without seeing it?" I said, our agent saw it and the inspector saw it, so it's fine. We trust the professionals. So I think I bought that book right after, or maybe I had ordered it or something while we were closing. And I read it after, and then I felt, I'm not crazy. People do this all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was really helpful in knowing, again, we weren't crazy. It was something that was doable and scalable. And really that we had no need to walk the property before buying it, because we're not inspectors and we can't, at the time we had no knowledge of real estate and we didn't know what to look for. Now, yeah, we can walk in and see things clearly. And again, we can find foundation issues and different things like that. But back then we had no idea. The average person won't know what to look for when they're walking a property. And even a lot of agents won't know when they're working with investors. It's very different than working with a homeowner. That's a different ballgame in itself. So even just that, you won't know what to look for unless you work with investors and manage properties, or you're an inspector. Yeah, that really helped us. And okay, we're taking the right steps here, and we could scale this from out of state, because at that time we didn't think of moving here. We were just thinking we'll be full-time out of state investors was our thought.
Yeah, I think technology's made it so easy for us to do virtual tours. And really, like you said, if you know what you're looking for, even before, you're going to rely on the professionals. So you're going to make sure you're building the right team. But I think like now you can do video tours. I do video tours for clients all the time. It's not the same, but you're not missing much. You're at least able to get that. And then, like you said, we talked about in the beginning, Jacksonville wasn't brand new to you. So when somebody sent you an address, you have reference to like where it is, which is the one thing I think is hard for people if they just pinpoint something on a map. You can pull it up on Google Maps and think it's a good block, but you don't know everything around there. So it helps to have some local knowledge. So you know that 2 blocks over isn't an area that's a D when you think you're a B.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that was something interesting. We knew every street by street view when we were living in New York for years, but then driving it was very different. I would tell, because Isaac would do all the driving. Even now, I stay in the office, drives around, but even now I'll say, yeah, I know that street from Street View, and he's, no, you don't. You haven't been there. Yeah. But definitely the team's a big thing. And even with Michael, like I tell people sometimes, we trusted him so much that we bought our primary home sight unseen with him. So we actually bought our house and closed on it 5 months before moving here. So the first time we ever saw our house was when we pulled up with all of our stuff to move in.
Was it as good as you had hoped?
Yes, we love our house. We've done a lot of improvements to it, but yeah, it was definitely a struggle. We would watch his video all the time, like trying to map out the house and everything, but that was the hardest part. But we did put a lot of trust into him, and it paid off. Yeah,
I mean, on that, what was it that made it easy for you to trust him? Obviously, now he's a partner, but I think it's good for others to know, like, you do have to get to a certain level to really know that they're taking care of you. What was it about your guys' relationship with him at the time that made it okay to get these 3 and then to buy your personal residence without seeing it? Because it does require a lot of trust in the agent and the inspectors and the people that he's using as providers to make sure that you're safe.
So it was the fact that he would tell us to back out of a deal without us saying it first. Numbers all made sense. Everything made sense. But I think one of the first ones we got under contract with him, I think like the attic was sealed off and the owner wouldn't open it up for an inspection. Yeah. So he was like, back out of it. Or he would walk. He does this all the time with people. He ends up telling them to back out more than he tells them to move forward, because he's not the typical agent where he'll only work with you one time. When you buy a home to live in, you just buy one and then maybe you buy another one, I don't know, 10 or 15 or 20 years later. But he knows that an investor will buy more than one, or that's what that's what most of our clients want, is they want multiple properties and they have goals of getting 15 or 20 or X amount in their lifetime. So he doesn't want them to get into a bad deal. And sometimes they'll say, that's fine. I'm aware of the foundation issue. I don't care that it's this price. I'll move forwards. But he just really wants you to be aware of what you're getting, because they're not here and we weren't here. So that just told us a lot. He's not pushing things on us. He's not trying to sell us. And that's how we were in our life throughout our careers with everything that we did. So we just felt like we could trust him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. I think people have an impression of realtors that they have commission breath and they're chasing a commission. The truth is, it's probably true for a majority of realtors. But when you meet the ones that are willing to say, actually, you know what, pass on this one, we'll find a better one right away, they're not focused on, like you said, one, they're focused on more. And that's the key to working with investors overall. Some
clients were lucky and they would get the very first one they placed an offer on. We had this one client out of California and he literally got the first 4, like back to back, that he placed offers on. And then we had others that 6 months in, they had placed, 30 offers and still nothing. So they're like, Michael keeps telling me to back out, but be patient. You're like, let's wait for that you feel good about buying and won't regret it later, or at least try our best to make sure you get something that you're going to like.
Yeah, and it's especially more important on the first one. I think as investors get more experience, us as agents are able to tell them, well, here's the risk. This is what we're seeing. Are you willing to take on the risk? But for first-time investor or buyer, I want to reduce their risk to basically zero. Because I feel like I will be responsible for it. If I told them to go forward and something bad happens, that's going to be on me. And I think that fits with your whole business model, though, of customer service first, for sure.
Right. Yeah. We're not perfect by any means. But we try to at least be honest and transparent and tell our clients and people investing as much information upfront as possible with everything that we do. And if we make a mistake, we'll admit to it. And we open feedback. We're very open with our clients. They can bring us feedback if they're not happy or anything that happens, but it's very much a transparency thing with us.
Great. One thing I wanted to talk about from our forum, which I think is really interesting, I ask everybody the question, what is wrong with the real estate investing world right now? And there are a lot of things, but you had one, I really liked your answer. You said, at this moment, people that have invested in the past are expecting the same prices and rental market as we had in the past 2 years. And they're not adapting to the change. How are you dealing with that? And sometimes we have to lose those clients, I know, because they just won't understand that it can't be the same as it was.
Yeah, it was definitely tough. More around August is when it started slowing down quite a bit. And then even the holidays, in 2021, during the holidays, we were still placing tenants within 2 weeks. The average time was, a lot of them were within a week, we would have an application. Within 2 weeks, we would have a lease. And properties barely sat longer than 30 days. That was very rare when something sat longer than 30 days. But come August and September, it was a big change. And we had never been in a market like that ourselves before as property managers. We had been in the easy market where anything can get rented at any price to a qualified tenant. So we had to adjust as well and be more as proactive as possible and call people after a showing instead of just letting them come to us. So we changed stuff internally. And then it was a lot of showing our clients look, this is what's active right now, this property. We would use Zillow a lot because they would show us what the price is and how long it's been active for. So if you want, $1,500 for your house, it's going to sit for 60 days or 45 days or 9. But if you drop it to 14, maybe we get somebody within that 30-day window. So it was just showing them the proof. Three of them trusted us already. So they know that obviously we want to get them the highest rents. We'll all make more money that way. Right. But we also don't want them to have a property that's sitting longer than it has to. So it was just telling them we can try for the higher price. And then with our systems in place, we can see if something's struggling pretty quick. After a week or two, we can see, okay, it doesn't have that many page views or that many showings. So let's drop the price. So we're always willing to try higher, but if it sits longer, then at least be flexible with us to drop it. So I would say 99% of them are pretty flexible.
Yeah, you said something important though. When we lower the price either on a sale or rental, we all make less money. So it's not, none of us want to do it. We're just trying to do the
Right.
best job for the client, which means get the asset out, whether it be rented or
Right.
sold.
And what we would do with our house, we would do the same thing. I think another thing that why we've grown so much is because we think of what we would do if that was our property. Would we lower the price, or would we do something else? Or would we do this new roof, or would we repair it? Just examples. So we give them our feedback on what I would do if that was my house versus just, yeah, these are the options and that's it.
Yeah, and that just brought up a good point. Don't you think that it helps you guys as a big property management company to also know that you have a fair amount of units on your own? I think that that to me makes it so much easier to sell your services, like you're saying, because you can say we did this on ours, whereas somebody who's just doing property management and has never owned their own home, they're really not going to be as invested in what they're doing as you guys are.
Yeah, that's definitely helped us. And then Michael became an investor as well after he joined us, buying his own rentals. And then we have 3 other team members, and one of them is getting ready to buy her first rental as well. And then the other one is like very into real estate investing as well. So everyone has an interest in it, which is really nice, and either invest as well or thinking about it in the future.
Yeah, I train all of my agents. I have a big team here in New Jersey, and we train them all to become investors when they're ready, but they want them all to think about it. Having access, like you said, you got licensed. You don't have to practice to make the license useful, because you can see data, MLS data, look at properties when you need to. It's just such a bonus. Here's the one question that I always ask everyone. I'm going to give it to you with a little bit of a different twist because you have so much experience in property management. If you could give one piece of advice to new investors who are planning on becoming landlords, what would you tell them based on these last 5 years of experience in property management and these 329 units?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say to have flexibility is a big thing because the market changes. Everyone was so used to the easy market past couple of years, rental wise, that you just think it's going to be like that forever, and it's not going to be like that forever. So things change in the blink of an eye. So you have to be flexible, and then also not panic when something goes wrong. So I heard a long time ago that it's not a matter of if you're going to have an eviction, it's a matter of when. We got ours really out of the way really early in the game, but it's very stressful for someone that's just getting into it to have an eviction or have a tenant stop paying or have a big expense or some sort of unforeseen event happen. So being flexible and not panicking when something goes wrong are 2 things that'll help them for sure.
Excellent. So if people want to work with you guys, you and Isaac at Thirdstone and your team, they would go to thirdstoneproperties.com. Is that the best place?
Yes.
Yes.
We have our website and then our Instagram pages as well. So they can contact us in any one of those websites.
Yeah. And your Instagram is Investor EMC. And yes. Elenis is good at returning DMs because that's where we communicate. I really think that it's interesting though, like almost all of my investor friends, we communicate in DMs more just because that's where we can all see each other, watch what's going on. But I think it's still important for those of us. Like the DMs are important. I feel like that's, modified text messages. And I don't like when I clearly know it's not the person that I'm contacting. That's annoying.
Oh, definitely. But yeah, we try to, again, be easy to communicate with. So sometimes clients that are onboarding ask me, like, what's your preferred form of communication? And I say whatever they prefer, because some people email, they text, they WhatsApp, they call. It's just depending on what their preferences. And I have people DM me on Instagram too. So yeah, it's really up to their preference. But I'm super glad you found me on Instagram and had me on your show.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it means a lot.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. So if you want to work with Elenis and her team, you're going to go to thirdstoneproperties.com. And that is in Jacksonville, Florida. And you guys go a little bit further. You said about an hour is the furthest outside, but I didn't realize Jacksonville was as big as you said it was.
Huge. Yes, it is very big. And then we service the neighboring areas like St. John's and St. Augustine, Ponte Vedra, the beaches. There's a lot of Jacksonville is huge, and then there's all these other big areas around it. So yeah, we try to, it's an easy drive in a big circle. So we can help them out as well.
Yeah, this was fantastic. I think we haven't had a lot of dedicated property management episodes, so this is going to be a huge win for the listeners. I really appreciate your time. It was great to meet you, and I hope we can stay in touch via the DM since we know that we're good at that already.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much. This has been episode 32 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Elenis Camargo. We will see you next week.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green. And I just want to remind you, and this is always an uncomfortable part, I don't want you to think that I'm begging for you to like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do for the podcast, leave a 5-star review. But if you like the podcast and you think it adds value in the real estate investing sphere, then just do me a personal favor. Like the podcast, follow it, share it when you can with your friends, and be so kind as to write a 5-star review if you believe it deserves a 5-star review up against what else is out there. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening.